On today's show, the NBA trade deadline is a week away. Which players could be moved and could change the course of the NBA? We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On NBA your first listen today. But the best way you can help us grow is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review, like the video on YouTube, and comment anything below. Let me know one player you want your team to trade for, whichever your favorite team is. Name your team, and then name who you want them to trade for. Let us know that. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
I just want somebody to figure out that Damian Lillard and Giannis should be the greatest pick and roll of all time. Nobody can figure this out.
They should screen for each other. They should pass to each other. They should.
It's like they should
know
be
which
teammates.
one should be the inbounder and which one shouldn't be the inbounder.
They should be teammates in theory.
If only Glenn Rivers could figure out the same things.
Dang it, Glenn. Dang it, Glenn.
Every time I hear Glenn Rivers, I just can hear Locked On Clippers host Darian Vaziri saying Glenn Rivers. After they lost them.
Has he done such a bad job? We've taken away Doc. Is that what's happened here? Like he doesn't deserve
but that
Doc.
Clippers team, yes, when they lost the 3-1 lead, or was it 3-0? Yeah, the 3-1 lead for the Clippers. That was the one Darian went off in his rant that went viral, and that's the only way I can hear Glenn Rivers. We'll talk about some stuff later on. We'll do Count It Up, where we count the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including the 65-game rule. Embiid is coming up against it. Tyrese Halliburton's coming up against it. Is it a good rule or is it not? And then we'll talk about the draft expanding to 2 days. That's a number, 2. You got actual Count It Up. And then Reddit went on a deep dive.
Boy.
Zion Williamson and milkshakes.
Kind of the same thing.
Is there a correlation? Do the milkshakes bring Zion to the yard? We'll talk about that a little bit later on Count It Up. How about that tease? How about that?
Well done.
But let's start here. The trade deadline is a week away. Teams are loading up to try and help their team going forward. Let's talk about talk about 5 players that could move teams that would change the NBA. And we'll start with this one. Jalen Green of the Houston Rockets. According to The Athletic, league and team sources say it's Ime Udoka's insistence on making the postseason in tandem with the Rockets front office that has accelerated the franchise firmly into phase 2 of its plan. So now they're making Jalen Green potentially available. They're going star hunting. They've checked in on Mikal Bridges. What are your thoughts on the Houston Rockets now trying to take a step forward? Alfred Sengun, your guy, is finally in the forefront. He's their star player, and they're wanting to trade Jalen Green. Are they skipping steps here?
100%. And I think it's going to be something that bites them in the butt in the long run, right? I get it, right? You're trying to move things along, but you took this job knowing that there were young players there that needed to develop. Jalen Green, a very good offensive asset. I think that maybe the part with Jalen Green that gets a little tough is it consistently efficient scoring, but over the last 10 you have seen a lot more of that efficient scoring come in, and his last 5 especially really going out there and balling out. Like I feel like it's very tough to say that Jalen Green isn't a part of a winning culture moving forward, but maybe they view Jalen Green very similar to what Zach LaVine has become in this NBA, where a guy who definitely can be a top scorer. Well, not that. Let's hope not. A guy who definitely could be a top scorer in the league, a guy who can put the ball in the basket, a guy who to me contributes in a lot of different ways, but does he contribute to consistent winning? It's a surprise to me that he's so quick to move off a player, though, who's 21 years old and can score the way that Jalen Green can.
It's a weird situation to be in where it does feel like skipping steps, but to me, like, you've got to get these guys some playoff success, and you've got to get them some playoff experience, and at least some of them. You've got to get at least the guys that you know you can ride or die with, right? Like the ones that you can say, all right, we can make it. And Ime Udoka's been part of a lot of teams like that. The Celtics, he was the head coach, but he was also part of those Spurs teams that went to a bunch of playoffs and went and he won a championship with them when he was an assistant coach. So he's seen some of these and seen the benefit of a Kawhi Leonard type player, where if you can take him to the promised land, like if you can take him through the playoffs and get that experience, it's necessary. So to me, I don't think they're skipping steps. I think they know we've got enough film on Jalen Green. We know what he's going to be. We can see the projection, and we're comfortable knowing that he's not all of a sudden going to take this huge leap forward where all of a sudden we're going to be, man, we regret this move. So to me, go for it. Like, this may be his highest trade value ever because he's coming up into his next deal, right? Like he's got this year, next year, and then he's a restricted free agent. You don't want to have to trade him when he's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of next season, right? So like his trade value may never be higher than right now. And like you throw him in and maybe another team gets interested. You've got some picks to trade. You got the Brooklyn picks that they're apparently willing to trade off of and send back to Brooklyn to get Mikal Bridges. You've got to get Şengün into the playoffs, I think.
I agree with that. I think the fact that IMA has identified Şengün as his number one means you can move off a player like Jalen Green. But do you feel like you're going out there to get are you confident that your number two right now being Fred VanVleet is the answer? Are you confident that bringing in
$40 million confident?
I mean, listen, that's what the Rockets put out there, right? But like, are you confident that he's going to be the answer that gets you to the promised land? He works really well with Şengün, like the way that the dynamic between those two has really played out this season. Okay, now what star are you going to get that's just going to slide right in there and fit perfectly? Like,
but so the other thing about this team is they're all young. It's not like you remove one young player and you say, okay, let's get another vet to pair with all of our other vets because we're ready to contend right now. They're not. They just need to take a step forward.
Yeah. And
with somebody that they need to upgrade the Jalen Green spot is really this whole thing. If they want to take any kind of step forward, if they want to make the playoffs even this season, you've got to improve on that Jalen Green spot. And then eventually you hope that Jabari Smith Jr., I think, is the one that takes that step forward because he's shown some flashes of hitting that mid-range shot, really good defense, a lot of stuff, size, like stuff that you just can't teach sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you bet on long-term with them.
Definitely could be. I mean, like, I don't know. Jalen Green's such an interesting player because you see the ups, you see the downs, and you're trying to kind of project where he's going to end up in the middle at. I feel like it's a little bit early to move off of him though right now. But I mean, listen,
what is he going to turn into? You mentioned Zach LaVine. Like, is Zach LaVine like his ceiling? If Zach LaVine is your ceiling, then
here's the thing though. Would you rather have Zach LaVine, right? The Zach LaVine that he is now, a little bit healthier on a team that already has a clear-cut number one and what I would say is probably your number two in Fred VanVleet. That guy's he's a 21-year-old player, right? Like, the conversation on Zach LaVine isn't that Zach LaVine can't play. It's that he's probably not a number one on a team. On this team, Jalen Green's nowhere near the number one option on this team anymore. And I think that that's why you've seen more of the winning. I think they're trying to not take a step. I think they're trying to take a leap into all of a sudden we're at the top of the Western Conference Finals. And I don't know if you have a team that's built for that process to be at that step already.
Well, they're not going to make the finals. I don't think we're even talking about that. I think they just want to make the playoffs in general. And to me, you've got to take at least some kind of step forward, and it doesn't look like they're going to make it happen with this team that they have right now.
That is true. I'll give you that. It's what, 22 and 25 basically on the season. You're right around mid, right? But it's just such a big step from where they were the year before that it feels like it's been so much more. So
22 and 25 is under mid.
I mean, that's the epitome of mid in the NBA right now. In the Eastern Conference, that's a playoff spot, I believe.
Before we hit record, you called the Rockets mid or the Bucks mid.
Well, listen, that's for a whole different reason.
The mid for you is like giant.
Hey, listen. Bucks winning the championship this year.
The mid for you is like a sandwich with those like thin slices of bread that are like the calorie saver, carb saver. And then
there's your top and there's your bottom, dog. That's all I got for you. There's your top and there's your bottom. Right now, and I look at the Milwaukee Bucks, they're not on the top, and they don't look better. Like, they just look like now Doc Rivers is on the sidelines. That's all that changed.
Who, Glenn?
Glenn. I still give.
You know what's wild? You know what's wild about the Rockets? They've already matched their win total from last season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you've taken a step in the right direction.
They already did.
It's just weird to me that it's like, all right, he's not a number one guy and we need a star player. It's like, what are you expecting from a star player to bring in? Like, you looking to go get another 25 point per game guy?
They tried to get Mikal Bridges. That one makes a lot of sense to me.
I don't know.
What about Dejounte Murray? Is that enough of a step forward?
I mean, Dejounte Murray is a major step forward, but I guess then you move Fred VanVleet to the 2 because Dejounte has proven that he's an on-ball player.
You can do a little combo of both of those two guys.
Yeah, how's that working?
Who?
How's that working right now in Atlanta? Like doing the combo of like, we got one guy with the no. Dejounte Murray's an on-ball point guard.
Yeah, but Trae Young and Fred VanVleet are so different.
Yeah, but let's stop.
You can play Fred off the ball.
You can play Fred off ball. Yes, I'm saying you can't do the combo. DeJounte's your point guard if he shows up there. There's no combo. Fred VanVleet's now your 2.
No, I think you could pizza combos both of those guys.
Pizza combos. Oh, no.
Coming up, let's talk about Zach LaVine. You mentioned him. We thought at one point he was going to get moved at the trade deadline. Why isn't he? Because you're not convinced that he is, and you cover the Bulls. So we'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You can go, and all you have to do is pick more or less on projections for stats on 2 to 6 players. You pick 2 to 6 players. You pick you pick the stats that you want, whether it's, if you're looking at the Super Bowl, maybe you want to do touchdowns. Maybe you want to do, you can check out like receiving yards, passing yards, all kinds of different stuff like that. You can combine a bunch of different ones, and then you can win money on that. So go check it out, prizepicks.com. If you put down $100 and use that code LOCKEDONNBA, it's all lowercase, LOCKEDONNBA, you can get your $100 matched. For example, on this, they've got Pat Mahomes, take me home, Pat Mahomes, 0.5 passing yards, more or less. Do you think he throws for 1 yard?
I will take the over on that.
There we go. That's a gimme right there. Travis Kelce, 72.5 receiving yards. Oh, come on. Give me more on that.
I'm going to take less on that.
Taylor Swift TV appearances, over, under, more or less 7.5. That's not on here. That's not on here. Deebo Samuel, 57.5 receiving yards. I'll go less on that one. Put down $20. I can win 100 on that one. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of the show, being an everydayer, and listening every day. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every day, like Locked On Bulls with Pat, Locked On Mavs with me, all kinds of stuff. Speaking of the Bulls, we're talking about trade candidates that would change the NBA. I thought Zach LaVine was going to be a trade candidate, and I brought it up to you, and you said, no. He's not getting traded. Him or DeMar not getting traded. We thought he was. He was up there. He was in the rumors. Why is Zach LaVine not getting traded?
Latest report is that the Bulls are going to be quiet at the deadline. To me, this is a
smoke screen.
It could be a smoke screen, and I think if there is a candidate, right, did the video yesterday with Peter Bukowski basically saying that the 2 guys that I expect to get traded are Zach and DeMar if there are trades made. The problem with all of this is, right, the Bulls are going to lose the deal. No matter what, you're going to lose the deal. Are they willing to lose the deal? And I think that that's the part that is proven to be, to this point, not true, that the Bulls are just, they're the calls that they've gotten, they're not willing to move off of Zach LaVine for such a low price. Seems like Jerry Reinsdorf has stepped in even a little bit on some of these deals and has basically said, nope, we're not like losing Zach LaVine for nothing. Yeah. Basically pennies on the dollar. And I guess in theory, right, that sounds good, but right, like you've got a situation where you've got a shooting guard who is now, it seems like he doesn't work well with the coach, doesn't believe in the system that they're running here, doesn't believe in the winning ways starting in Chicago. How are you going to put all of that back together? I think that Zach LaVine is the candidate that the Bulls should look to trade the most, that if they are going to make a trade, like I said yesterday, that Zach LaVine would be the person that they trade. But it just seems like they're not willing to take the loss. And that's a report that came out literally today or the day after recording the other podcast. So.
Was there no trade partners for Zach LaVine? Like, was there no interest?
There's minimal interest for Zach LaVine. I think a lot of teams realized with some of the other players that were on the market that they would rather have those. And the belief today, per Casey Johnson, that came out is basically that teams aren't convinced that Zach LaVine contributes to winning ways.
Are you convinced about that?
I mean, I've watched this Bulls team with Zach on the floor. I've watched Zach go off. I've watched him score a bunch of points. I think he's a heck of a player in the NBA, but there is something to be said that every time he comes back, the Bulls don't win. And it's not all on Zach LaVine. It's not all on. I think that there are a lot of factors that go into that, but you do look for a guy to elevate his team somewhat. And it's very damning that the second that he's off the court, the Chicago Bulls not only start winning in the month of December, have a pretty good month of December, they continue being around 500-ish in January, right?
It's good for them.
And Zach LaVine has pretty much played none of these games. When before that, it was just like, who are we getting our heads kicked in by out here? Like, what's going on? Like, every single day was that. Now, there's still some games where we do that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect, but you can tell that this Bulls team seems mentally in a better place when he's not on the court. And that is a concern to a player contributing to winning ways.
$40 million this year, 43 the year after that, 46 the year after that, $49 million player option the year after that. If they don't trade him now, did they just roll it over until next year and try again?
The hardest part about that is that there's a trade kicker involved in any move that Zach LaVine made. So Zach LaVine gets 15% on top of whatever he's making that year, basically, that the Bulls have to pay. So now you're telling Jerry Reinsdorf, hey, not only are you trading this guy, but you got to pay him on the way out the door. We saw what Scotty did, right? We saw how it went with Scotty. Like, I think that you're going to get to a point where you might have ownership step in and say, listen, kid, nobody wants you. You want to be gone. And I hate to tell you this, but you've signed a piece of paper that says you're here and we're not losing you for nothing. So you can either be terrible here and we'll just be terrible with you, or you can go out and try and prove that you are this winning player that you believe yourself to be, and then teams will want you and we'll move on from you then.
The other Bull, you don't think they'll trade DeMar DeRozan? He's in the last year of his deal.
I think DeMar is more than likely to be traded just because, like I said yesterday on the pod, right? Like the Bulls, the last report on the Bulls is that they're far apart on money and years. As far as I know, there's only two things that go into a contract. There's money and there's the terms that and the length of the contract.
Maybe they agree on the incentives.
Right, those incentives are money. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. So like, they're still far apart on money and
the
years.
Location of where the team is.
So I think, right, you know what I mean? Like, do the Bulls play in Chicago though? I think that probably a parting of ways with DeMar DeRozan could be something that is done, which at the end of the day, right, like, I guess the report that the Bulls won't make major moves is trading DeMar DeRozan away at this point, a major move for this team when you're sitting at 23 and 26 right now, when you're basically middling your way through trying to figure out what the heck you're doing. That to me isn't a major move. So maybe we could still see the DeMar DeRozan trade come through.
Another trade candidate that could change the NBA, Dejounte Murray. We talked about him a little bit. You mentioned he's got to be a point guard wherever else he goes. Yeah. Atlanta quietly has the 9th worst record in the league. Like, they are bottom tier bad right now and have not been very good, even though they've won 2 in a row. But yeah, they just have not been very good. Dejounte Murray, there was a bunch of noise around the Lakers, and then all of a sudden that's been quiet. Quinn Snyder, his coach, has stepped up and said he wants them to keep Dejounte Murray. How does this end?
Sends in Dejounte Murray probably playing for another team because there's too much politics tied up in Trae Young being traded away. That to me
is they're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're never going to trade away Trae Young. He is, right, the heart and soul of Atlanta right now, and that team that is middling right now. He's the one before Dejounte. By the way, I do remember this strikingly handsome podcaster saying that this would never work in Atlanta, and everybody laughing in his face. So eggs on you guys, right?
Say anything like that.
Oh, come on now, dog. Come on now, my guy. You already know what it is. But no, I feel like this has to end, unfortunately, with Dejounte Murray somewhere else. I don't know where, though, because are you trying to compete at this point? Like you said, 9th worst record in the league. What are you trying to get back for Dejounte? You gave up a lot to me for Dejounte Murray.
Do the Knicks make any sense? They've got picks.
No, because
got some salaries.
Again, you can't. I don't think Brunson's an off-ball guy. You've seen Brunson up close off-ball. He's not the same Jalen Brunson as he is with the ball in his hand.
Not the same, but he can play off ball if they need him to. And they need to replace Emmanuel quickly. Like they still need to replace, they still need to find a replacement there. But
yeah,
the problem is he going to want to play for Tibbs? Because we saw how it ended with the Spurs and Popovich, and you're like, I don't know about trying to do that again. Another one that kind of makes a little sense is Orlando. They've got 3 first-round picks.
Orlando would be interesting. That would be one where I would actually be very intrigued by that. The problem with Orlando is, right, like so many guards, dog. It's just guards,
but they've got so many mid guards. Like,
so many guards. Yeah, they're all the same, dude.
They're
right?
they're basically hanging out at Asgard, and they're like, all right, we've got all these mid guards.
Okay.
Dang it! I didn't hit that joke. I didn't hit that joke.
You didn't have confidence on it. You didn't have confidence on it.
I forgot what mid guard is. Like, there's Asgard, and then there's I can't remember. But anyway, the MCU is dying in front of us. My last one for Dejounte is the Pelicans. The Pelicans have 3 first-round picks, and they need a point guard. They don't really have one at all.
If the Pelicans send all 3 first-round picks, maybe that deal gets done. I don't see the Pelicans moving. I like what the Pelicans are just existing in the NBA as well, right?
That's what I'm saying. Why don't they take a step forward?
Shout out to the West Coast Bulls, because I think the problem with the Pelicans is, right, you're paying so many players down there to just
they don't have enough salaries to go back.
Be down there. Yeah, I mean, like
they'd have to trade CJ or Ingram, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because then
you almost forgot the sad part about the saddest part about the Pelicans is they made us forget that CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram are good. Like every now and then you think about them, and then you just about them. Every now and then you just think about him. You go, oh yeah, Brandon Ingram is pretty good, isn't he? He's a really good basketball player. Yeah.
Coming up, let's talk about the 65 game rule in the NBA in Count It Up, where we count the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and lines that you can check out. The Super Bowl. It's all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snack, and placing some super bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get signed up and see what's available for you. They've got all kinds of weird stuff and fun stuff for the Super Bowl. You can do like the coin toss. You can bet on the coin toss result, head or tails. The coin toss winner, 49ers or the Chiefs. If the coin toss winner wins the game, you can bet on that. There's all kinds of stuff. They have scoring props, and make sure to check out the Parlay Hub where they have all kinds of different things. Here's the first one that shows up. This one is plus 626. McCaffrey scores a touchdown. Travis Kelce scores a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes is over 250 yards. Brock Purdy has 250 yards passing. All those hit. You put down $10, you can win $62. That's pretty fun. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. See what's available for you on the Super Bowl. Not just NFL. They've got baseball, they have basketball, they have all kinds of stuff, college, all that kind of stuff. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get signed up. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Pat, we've talked about trade candidates that could change the NBA. And now let's talk about players that are changing the NBA. We talk about the most interesting, fun things in the NBA in our segment.
Big chicken, baby.
Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
Joel Embiid is getting real close to missing the mark for the 65 game rule that makes you ineligible for postseason awards like MVP, All-NBA. He's going to miss Thursday's game against the Jazz. That'll be his 13th game missed. He can only miss 17 games total. That means he can only miss 4 more games the rest of the season before he misses it. Tyrese Halliburton, his contract is also tied into him making All-NBA. If he doesn't make All-NBA, he makes 25% of the cap going forward on his deal. If he makes All-NBA this season, he makes 30% of the cap, which would mean $41 million more for him overall. He's on the cusp of missing it as well, and he has said it's a stupid rule. My question is the 65 game rule more stupid or more sensical for the NBA?
I would say the 65 game rule is stupid, but it's stupid because the players made them implement it. Nobody told.
Yeah, it's dumb that we had to get here.
It's dumb that we had to get here. This is why it's stupid. Right. And I get it. There's some guys that they don't want to miss games. Most guys, I would say, probably don't want to miss games, but you allowed organizations to get to the point where the organizations are going, you're not playing, you're not playing, you're not playing. I guess maybe you make something mandatory for the organization, but what resolve do we want here? What answer do we want here? For NBA awards, we were looking at players who were playing 55 games ago, and he's having a hot second half of the season. I guess we could talk about him as an MVP candidate. No, like I get it, right? You're upset because you're going to lose money in all of this. And it's stupid from that aspect. And I would say
$41 million.
No, it's stupid.
That's like a whole year
aspect.
of his salary worth of
But
money.
the dumbest part of all of this is we got to a point where players basically were just taking days off, where players weren't going out there for certain games, where players were missing weeks, right? And this started with Bron. Like there's no
started with the Spurs.
Well, the Spurs did it, but then right, like Bron also was right. Remember, he would just take vacations. He'd just be like, "Where's Bron for 2 weeks?" What happened to Bron? Like,
He's sitting there on the trade machine trying to figure out how to get rid of guys.
2 weeks off to go down, right? Like you look at the Spurs, you look at Bron, you look at all those moments, and you go, "Oh yeah, we'll just take a couple of weeks off, and we'll be fine, and we'll come back, and we'll be ready to go for the playoffs." You put such a focus on the playoffs that the regular season became unimportant. That is why this rule is in place. So yes, it is stupid, but it's stupid because of things that players and organizations have done.
In school growing up, did you ever have you had to do the quiet recess where you just all sit at your desk and like, because you were all getting punished? Where it was like, all right, everybody's got to abide by this rule now. Even though I know it wasn't all of you, the teacher always stands up and goes, I know it wasn't all of you. There's a bunch of you that ruined it for everybody else. And that's what this rule is. And they needed it. It's sensical to me. I think this rule makes sense. It sucks for a couple players, but it was becoming such a big problem that they needed some kind of incentive for players to play. And like, if you usually play less than 65 games, you don't usually win MVP anyway, because you don't play enough games. Like, there have been very few that have played less than 65 games in a normal season.
I don't remember any. I thought about Stephen Curry. Maybe he was one. I started looking up some of the guys who maybe could have, but Steph played 79, 80 games a year. He won his MVPs.
Like, Embiid played 66 last year, right?
Yeah.
There's one. But then you look at like Giannis, that 63 was in a shortened season.
Yeah, but I think 66, right? 65 and up. I said this when the rule came out. That's fine to me because that does take into account you get banged up during the season. Certain things happen. Maybe you've been playing a ton of minutes and you need a day off after a back-to-back, right? Like I think that the number that they set it at is a reasonable number. What are we talking about? Guys playing 60 games, 50 games and winning MVPs, and you're supposed to be, getting the top money. No, you have to be on the court to earn money. You have to be on the court to play. Halliburton's situation is very, very different. I'm not saying that he's wrong in saying this rule is stupid. What I am saying is this rule is stupid because of the stupid decisions that people have made in the past.
Basically, since in a regular amount of games season, since like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like 69 games by Bill Russell and 58 is the lowest amount of games.
69 games by Bill Russell. That's nice by Bill Russell.
Bill Walton played 58 in that season with the Trailblazers, and he won. That was in 78. That was the shortest one. But everybody's played 70 or more besides those guys I just mentioned in a regular season. So I don't think it's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous, man.
We're going to skip the NBA draft to 2 days because it's boring. And
the funniest thing was, like, me and Hayes did this. And he's like, who's watching day two?
The reason why they're doing this is to allow for more room for trades between day one and day two. That's the thing.
We literally were just like, who's watching day two? Like, what's going on with that? Like, who's sitting down going, ooh, second round. Let's see what we got.
Here we go. We're doing second day two. All right. On Reddit, this is a prime Reddit off-season post, but it got bumped up to this season.
Yeah.
Reddit scraped box score numbers from ESPN for each away game that Zion Williamson started during his career. Then they calculated the game score, which provides a rough measure of a player's productivity for a single game. The scale is similar to that of points scored, blah, blah, blah. The full formula is outlined, and they did it there. They went and they also looked at the relationship between how well cities' milkshakes are ranked and tried to come up with, is there a correlation between, this is the same thing as the James Harden and the strip clubs. They looked up how good the milkshakes are in the city and how well Zion has performed in those cities. Their conclusion. See Pat's face. Their conclusion. There is a statistical significant positive relationship between Yelp rating and game score at the 1% level. Zion plays 4% better in games where there are cities where there are better milkshakes. I believe I may have fully uncovered the secret to unlocking his potential and strongly recommend taking out a second mortgage the next time Zion steps foot in the Bay Area. Because they apparently have the best milkshakes in the Bay Area.
So now my question.
Count it up.
We talking about milkshakes like the drink, or what are we talking here? I'm just trying to figure out what kind of correlation we're doing. What kind of math are we doing? We talking about?
Hold on, wait. Your second question, if it's not like a literal milkshake, is you're saying there are Yelp ratings for them?
Well, I mean, there's got to be some kind of rating for them, right? Am I wrong? I guess nobody's doing it. There's got to be some kind of rating, bro. Like, there's 5-star and there's 1-star.
I thought the rating was the I'm 0.01% on OnlyFans. I thought that was isn't that the new ranking?
Yeah, but everybody's 0.01% on OnlyFans, pretty much, right? Like, isn't that how the
statistically
all the
that doesn't make any sense?
Go? No, not at all. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, isn't that how the descriptions go? Like, you just say you are, even though you're not. I don't know. I'm not somebody who's an OnlyFans subscriber. Let us know in the comments how OnlyFans work. I'm good on that. What I do want to know is
we can't pretend we don't know how it works because we both.
No, I know how it works, but I don't know how the math on the 0.1% works.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
If you do statistical analysis at OnlyFans,
yeah, hit us up. Let us know here at the Locked On Network. But what I'm trying to, so I guess now this is a bigger question than Zion, because which milkshakes we talking about here? Like, we talking about the drink, or are we talking about the other one? Because I mean,
check the full formula about all of it, how they did on Reddit.
There is a formula, my guy. I'll tell you that much right now. If you add 1 part Zion and 1 part Mariah Mills, you get
Zion Williamson and porn stars.
He was literally looking. This post was literally looking at actual like milkshakes. But anyway,
did Zion say something about liking milkshakes? Is that what brought this on? Do you people have nothing to do?
This is prime Reddit. Like, this is what Reddit is made for.
I don't know, man. Like, go find some milkshakes, dog. Stop doing.
They found them all in all the NBA cities, and they found the Yelp ratings for them.
That's not what I'm talking about. If you're doing this math, you're clearly not drinking milkshakes, my guy. If you're doing this kind of breakdown, you're not getting enough milkshakes in your life.
This is where the story ends. Oh, all right. There you go. Let us know in the comment section, which player do you want your team to trade for? Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.
Boom. Milkshakes.
Can we say that after this episode?
I don't know what we could say.